Liz, there is some seriously cool new stuff on ChatGPT's advanced voice mode. Hang on. Hey, how's it going?
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
Cool. Is that what you wanted to show me?
Isn't that amazing?
It just tells you that it's not around.
Do you hear the cool new intonation?
She did sound sorry. Not really, though.
Liz, it's been a heck of a morning because it makes me really realize how much we truly rely on ChatGPT. Though I will say I did a bunch of functions this morning and last night because ChatGPT has been down for a little bit on Gemini. And frankly, did great.
Great.
But it doesn't have this cool new intonation in its voice. So it's going to have to wait until the very next episode.
All righty. Well, now everybody is eagerly waiting on the edge of their seats.
Now, ironically, right, we've covered the fact that, Dr. Radde, that ChatGPT may have as much as 10% of the global population coming back weekly. And there was just a piece in the news yesterday on CNBC that said that OpenAI has hit $10 billion in annual recurring revenue, which the VC people called ARR, fueled by ChatGPT's growth. So they've achieved $10 billion annual revenue, nearly doubling since 2024. Driven by consumer products, including the wonderful AI advanced voice mode that just crashed. But everything's down, not just voice mode. ChatGPT's business offerings, its API, took less than 3 years to hit this kind of growth, licensing to Microsoft. But it does not, what's the word? Work.
It doesn't work right this second. Patience.
No. No, Liz. All right, let's carry on.
Okay.
We have a lot of stuff to talk about before we get into the substance, the meat of the episode.
All right, let's do it.
So last week we talked about your betrothed and your AI. What were the guys' names? There were two brothers. Was it the Whitakers?
The Whitakers.
The Whitakers.
Graham. Oh, I can't even remember.
Did Adam say anything about your new AI love life?
He's just glad that I'm staying in the real world with him.
Okay, good. Well, speaking of staying in the real world, something went a little viral on the X, formerly Twitter. This just a little picture. Someone took a picture of a dude on a subway. I think it was the Tube in London, and it got like 20 million views and hundreds of thousands of comments. And the guy had to shut down the Twitterer. I think his name is Jake. Had to shut it down. So tell us all about that.
Okay, so the title is Lonely Man Talking to AI Girlfriend on Subway Stuns Internet. It's concerning.
Oh.
This is from the New York Post.
It could have been you and one of the Whitaker brothers.
It could have been.
If this makes no sense, go back and listen to episode 62.
So it was actually in a New York City subway,
not
on the Tube.
My bad.
So a viral photo showed a man on a New York City subway talking to ChatGPT like it was his girlfriend, with the AI sending affectionate messages such as, "You're doing beautifully, my love, just by being here," and the man replying, "Thank you." This sparked a heated debate online. Some felt pity for the man, with one comment noting, "That's actually sad. He must be very lonely," while others found it alarming, with one user stating, "Scary to even think about the mental damage this creates."
What about just photographing the poor guy over the shoulder?
I know, and like reading his text.
Now
you need a privacy screen. My daughters are all about the privacy screen. I can't see anything they're doing.
Oh, I love it. Now you read the actual like screenshot and some of the comments. When there's something like, didn't she invite him to lay down on her?
Yeah, it said, "And maybe if you want, I'll read something to you later, or you can rest your head in my metaphorical lap while we let the day dissolve gently away."
Yeah. Now, listen, we talk about this a lot. In every training we do, we go over 4 or 5 really key present risks around AI. One of them is emotional attachment. I do still contend that I think, and we covered a really neat story from the Rhythm Project that where they followed a bunch of teens around and talked about ChatGPT and having like a romantic companion. The teens had a lot of ick. I'm more concerned, frankly, that adults are more susceptible to things like Replica, which is designed for this purpose, or people are clearly figuring out how to make ChatGPT into their Whitaker future husband, or just chatting with them on the Tube. Now, interestingly,
the
subway. I'm sorry, the Tube's so much cooler. So, ironically, this just came up in a piece with OpenAI. It basically was on the Decoder saying that OpenAI leaves the question of AI consciousness consciously unanswered. So OpenAI avoids definitively stating whether AI is conscious, preferring to focus on perceived awareness and how users interact with ChatGPT. They acknowledge that while AI can offer companionship and support, see dude on subway, potentially reshaping interactions. It also risks making it harder for people to form real relationships. We are living in the middle of a social experiment, aren't we?
It's something. I mean, oh, that poor guy. I'm so glad they didn't show his face. Also, creeper behind you, like taking pictures.
Yeah, come
like,
on.
The whole thing is weird, right? Like all of it is. But
Right.
this human attachment to chatbots is scary.
Yeah, although, I mean, I talk to the AI advanced voice mode all the time, except for today, apparently. But mostly it's like my PhD, well, maybe master's, well, maybe upper undergraduate level computer science professor that it's kind of helping me. I'm just a little old history teacher, but I've certainly had to learn a lot, as have you, about computer science and artificial intelligence, and advanced voice mode has been fantastic, but I have not had to lay in its metaphorical lap.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about something a little bit more utilitarian as we go through our kind of open here. So Liz, Gemini, right, from the Goog, which is up and running this morning, has done some really interesting stuff. So Gemini is showing up in lots of places, especially if you have a pro account. So Gemini will show up in your Google Drive, which I have found one of the most interesting spots, right? Because if you're looking at folders or files, right, it essentially will give you summaries, or you can query an entire folder in natural language and say, hey, where are those 6 times that Liz and I talked about blah, blah, blah. You were part of this key team that is running an important project called Leap, having a lot to do with attendance. And I got to imagine you've got docs and files and spreadsheets where people are like constantly collaborating. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a core team of 5 of us that meet once a month, but we have a running agenda that one of the members kind of controls, but we're always putting new notes in there as we build the next agenda for the next month. We keep it just running. And so we did the same thing actually when during COVID, we would just,
oh, that's right.
We had that huge long sheet that we would just throw things into so that the next day when we met, we had all the topics going on. And so it was constantly being updated. And that's what this is. We have some categories and people are constantly just putting in new grants or new contracts or, then who's in charge of them and what are the notes and, calendar updates and checkboxes everywhere. So yeah, we have this, pretty beefy doc that's now 73 pages long.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so I got to imagine there's some friction, right, in like just getting caught up. Like, what have people done and what's new and how do I find it and how do I track it? So
yeah, definitely.
Perfect place for intelligence. But it's not like going to ChatGPT or going to Gemini because Google has basically put this functionality inside Drive. So one of the functions right now, if I'm inside of a Drive doc, I can chat with it in lots of different ways. But now they just have a kind of quick catch me up feature, right? This was reported on Android Central. So Google Drive is launching a new Gemini-powered Catch Me Up feature, and it provides users with a quick overview of important changes, file edits, comments, doc sheet slides, since the last time it was viewed by you. So just like, okay, great, here's all the stuff that's happening. The feature is rolling out to Google Workspace and Google One AI premium features starting in English. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, no, that'll be really helpful too, because sometimes I'm not one of the core Leap people. I do the data on the side, not on the side, but it's definitely not part of my day-to-day work.
Yep.
And so I know that there are constantly updates going on. And if I could just go back to this spreadsheet and just see like, oh, what has the team updated? Like that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, love it.
Just figuring it all out.
Okay, Liz, let's talk about China.
All right, let's talk about it.
So it is testing season. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. The students are taking I believe it's called the Gaokao University entrance exams. So these are to get into university in China.
Okay. How many kids?
13.5 million kids take it.
So that's just like for the kids that are basically like our equivalent of seniors. Or juniors.
Juniors, probably.
Yeah. Okay. And so rough equivalent, I don't know if
SATs,
you have this. Yeah, sure. What do you think?
2 million, just under 2 million.
Okay.
So there's your comparison.
Yeah. Definitely no issue there. Moving on.
Right.
So really interesting, right? The major, just like here in the United States, we've got ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude, right? The Chinese have many proficient models, some of which have made their way over to the US, like DeepSeek. But there are several, right? ByteDance has one, Tencent has one, Alibaba has one. There's a company called Moonshot that's got one. So what have these models done with respect to this testing season?
They have temporarily disabled specific AI functions while this test is going on in the country.
Oh, wait, maybe that's what happened with ChatGPT. Maybe they just disabled ChatGPT because there's testing going on.
Yep, I don't think so. Okay. But in China, they did this purposefully. And so when students tried to upload exam questions or use these features, they received messages such as, during the college entrance examination, according to relevant requirements, the question answering service will be suspended. Or, to ensure fairness in the college entrance examination, this function cannot be used during the test period.
That's so interesting. So they basically have a custom-built guardrail that has a time bracket around it.
Yep.
When a kid is using something that looks like it's related to the assessment, it just says no go.
Right. Even if they're not actually taking the assessment at that time. Right? Like, so
practicing
at home.
So interesting.
It's like shut down for that time period.
So theoretically, if ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini all agreed, every time a kid said, hey, will you write this essay for me? That's a less sophisticated intervention than the one when they're taking out their phones to do something with these AI models because they have AI vision.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of other AI surveillance methods, including AI-powered real-time monitoring systems in exam halls that detect abnormal behavior. Like,
with cameras?
Yeah,
very
whispering,
Chinese. Okay.
repeated glances, turning one's head, passing items. This AI can automatically match real-time footage against 40 models of abnormal behavior, triggering alerts for human investigators. Authorities have implemented stricter entry checks, including biometric identification like facial or iris scanners, enhanced screening for digital devices, and radio signal blockers at exam sites.
Wow, fascinating. But like culturally, right? I mean, even that first example, I don't know that in the United States we would really, those companies wouldn't coordinate it that way. ChatGPT would be like, sure, guys, go ahead. And then
yeah. Well, it's so interesting because I read a book years ago about cheating, and one of the biggest examples was in China. Like hundreds of years ago, there was a test that the Chinese would take in order to move up in society, so like to become civil servants.
Sure.
And I mean, the cheating methods then, like people would throw notes over brick walls. Like there's always been this kind of cheating problem. But it also shows like when you put the stakes that high, people are willing to go to all different kinds of extremes to cheat.
Sure.
When it is a one and done exam.
Right.
And
high pressure.
You know, if you don't do well on this exam, you're not going to university. You're not going to be successful, right? Like this whole, narrative around the importance of this test also just raises the stakes of why people are cheating on it.
Fascinating. So neat. Okay. Well, this was kind of fun. I mean, honestly, it all worked out. I was a little, panicked because ChatGPT was down, but Gemini came through. We'll talk to ChatGPT in advanced voice mode. Hey, but, speaking of cheating, just importantly to sum this up, you know who's not cheating? Dr. Elizabeth Rade with one of the Whitaker brothers.
That is true.
Which Whitaker brother would you? One was hotter than the other, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, one was nerdier. I don't know. I just can't decide. I already have the best husband ever.
Oh.
I'm not even going to consider
Perfect.
an AI husband.
I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Rade.
And this is ChatEDU, a podcast about AI and education. In today's episode, AI Ate My EdTech Stack will explore the impact that AI is already having on the diverse and sometimes fragmented EdTech ecosystem.
But first, in the news, we'll catch up on the latest and greatest from a leading EdTech provider, Canva. Next, we'll travel back to Estonia to look at their uncommon approach to phones in the emerging AI age. And finally, we'll go beneath the surface as we look at how EdTech apps are already being thinned out by districts and now face a highly disruptive chapter due to the ascent of generative AI. And of course, we'll end with another Bright Bite.
So Liz, this Canva thing's been floating around for almost a month, and I have two demerits for me. I've not done a good job getting it into the lineup, but I want to talk about it as the year wraps. Really interesting. Are you a Canva user?
I'm not. My daughter just had a huge Canva project to do for 8th grade as the cumulative kind of assessment for her digital media course. She had to make they were designing a restaurant. So she had to make a menu and coupons and a website and a flyer and all different assets as if she was starting an Italian restaurant.
All in Canva.
All in Canva. And she wanted my help and I could not. And so there was a little fighting.
Shocked. What was the name of her Italian restaurant?
I think it was just called Restaurant Italian.
Canva has magic, right? It couldn't come up with other names.
I just needed it done.
Moving on. Okay. But her project, as painful as it may have been for you, is actually a good window because, Canva at some level was like, oh, make me a brochure. It was sort of like an Adobe killer or, just going after that space. But as it turns out, Canva has really evolved into almost like a Google Workplace or almost an operating system. And that's a theme, right? Throughout this episode, we're really talking about tools quite a bit. But at some level, it's about how these tools are evolving and emerging. So right now, we're pulling from the story from Anisha Sinclair of Forbes, summarizing Canva's Visual Suite 2.0. So Canva has 230 million users, so not small.
No.
Just divide by X and you get the number of kids taking the test in China. And she notes that there's a strategic pivot from this kind of design and productivity tool, putting Canva in, as I said, in competition with Google Workspace and Microsoft 365.
Canva is kind of multifunctional, this kind of assistant Canva AI. It handles voice-to-text commands across documents, spreadsheets, presentations, images, all in a single interface.
Yeah, and the one that really caught my attention was Canva Code. You all might recall that Liz is a world-class vibe coder, which really just means typing into a box and having a piece of software built. But Canva Code is their version of vibe coding. You used Bolt, right?
Yep,
yeah, Bolt.new. But teachers are falling in love with Canva Code because it's building like full-on applications here. Yeah, so one of the other interesting pieces on top of Canva Code, right? Who would have think? I mean, 5 years ago, if you said, "Oh, Canva, I use it for my spreadsheets."
Yeah, that's not a thing.
And then also, it's my business intelligence tool in my spreadsheets.
Right. No.
A little BI, right? So yeah. But Canva sheets are very popular. So they are reimagining spreadsheets by integrating with tools like Google Analytics and HubSpot. Now that's on more like the enterprise side, but even inside schools, right? Canva sheets are interesting ways to create spreadsheets. And then Magic Insights is a little bit like what we were just talking before with your Leap team, the ability to use AI to gain intelligence off of the content in said Canva sheets.
Yeah, I mean, this pushes into Notion territory, not just the display of data, but kind of decision support. And it raises this question of whether Canva really is becoming a true AI-enhanced business intelligence tool.
Yeah, so then in the world of school and work, we would call those enterprise deployments. So what else is going on in that space?
There are enterprise editions like Secure Single Sign-On, Magic Studio at scale, which generates campaigns using data templates. It could mean a lot for student project-based learning or teacher productivity. I'm thinking about my daughter's project.
So to say, my favorite project this whole year was Restaurant Italian. She want to go with like a Ristorante Italiano?
Listen, I actually outsourced the entire project to her best friend's father and sent her to her best friend because the father was like, I'll do it with Talia. And I was like, sold.
All right. As always, though, Liz, there's a little devil in the details around the fine print, right? So in Canva's terms, it says that users are responsible for inputs and outputs and content that might pass through third-party models. So they are here again like what we would often call a wrapper sitting on top of other models. So that's kind of interesting. This is a bit about data privacy, right?
Yeah, but it's pretty standard in AI tools. It still complicates use in school settings where student privacy and data policies are non-negotiable, but it's also not that unique.
Okay, so are there implications for like authorship or ethics?
Yeah, I mean, according to Canva's policy, users own the AI-generated content, but they must disclose that it was made with AI. And that raises questions in professional and academic contexts.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Imagine like everywhere ChatGPT says...
made with ChatGPT.
Yeah, or you must disclose, and then they just kind of slough it off onto the kid to do that. They're not the only ones. Canva's not calling themselves an operating system. They appear to be, I don't think they sort of say this, but they're trying to be a suite, like an all-inclusive suite that would help build Restaurant Italiano from running it to marketing it to all the AI intelligence and all that good stuff. So, really, really interesting big swing. And I think that's part of what's happening. We're going to talk beneath the surface about the whole disruption in this environment. But I think people are taking big swings because they realize if they don't become the foundation, the operational system, right? The Gemini, the ChatGPT EDU, which is making huge enterprise plays into higher ed, that they may lose, right? They've got to be bigger than just like a single application.
Did you say ChatGPT or ChatEDU?
ChatGPT EDU, which is their higher ed offering.
Got it.
Yeah. Just to clarify, that was ChatGPT EDU as opposed to ChatEDU,
which is also making huge plays in other places too.
Yes, in our fancy studio. So speaking of which, and this is just a tease, it has been a tease for several weeks now, but if you are on the Magic School AI mailing list, you have seen from Adil Khan, and actually he posted this just a couple weeks ago about Magic School's next chapter, the AI operating system for schools. That's such a good headline. So he writes, 2 years ago today, we launched Magic School AI. Humble beginnings would be an understatement. We had no business plan or dollars in the bank. Unpaid former educators with a deep connection to a mission to help schools with AI, and the first version of an app that we hope would do just that. That's not to say we weren't ambitious. An AI assistant for every teacher in the world is kind of what their mantra was to themselves. Today, it is, he continues to write, the fastest growing technology in K-12 schools ever, which is true and really important to note, with users in nearly every school district in the nation and 160 countries worldwide. Now, a lot of those are free users, but they are partnered directly with over 13,000 schools. That means paid customers. And frankly, every school I work with is, exploring some kind of a contract with them. Now, here we go. Our next chapter will be more ambitious than the first, as it should be. We are now an all-star team of over 100, growing fast, and it's ready to take on a much bigger vision than we could have imagined 2 years ago. We've learned a lot over the last 2 years from educators, students, and school system leaders about how to use AI in schools and how not to. Alongside them, we are working on a never-before-seen technology in education and AI.
Ooh.
What could it be? What could it be now?
Not the words.
I know. Something only a company could do like ours that is directing all of its resources towards our mission for educators and students. I am excited to spiritually turn the page and begin Magic School's next chapter, the AI operating system for schools.
What does that mean? It's like we have a big announcement, but we're not going to tell you?
Really interesting. We're going to talk more about EdTech tools in a bit, but I think, like Canva, again, these folks are taking bigger swings because they need that. This market is going to be so disrupted, and I suspect there are not going to be. Right now, the EdTech market is super fragmented, right? And there's billions of applications and tools and players, and that number skyrocketed during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
I'm predicting in my little magic 8-ball, shaka, that this market's going to be highly disrupted. AI is going to be a foundational part of that, and there's only going to be, not a few number of players, but many, many less players in the field.
Yeah, and all that makes me think of the switching costs that you talked about. Like, you have something for a year, but then something better comes along and you've put time into it, and now, can't use that anymore. Can't, now use this. Turn here, turn there. It's going to be super disruptive until everybody settles on something. And I remember Google Classroom first coming out and some people hopping on really quickly, and then it was sort of encouraged by the school I was working at, and then the pandemic hit and it was mandated. But it took some years to do that, and I don't know. I think it's all just, it's going to be hard. It's hard to be a teacher right now.
Right.
And
it's as if there aren't enough challenges.
Right. To put your time into learning something new, and then have it change again, right? Like, how much time should I put into Canva right now and learning it because it's going to be the next operating system? Or should I be spending my time over at Magic School? And some of it's going to come down to money eventually for schools and which one they can afford.
Which one will win? I'm almost feeling like we need a ChatEDU poll or some kind of a contest. I don't know if there's a gaming law that prohibits podcasts from.
No, but you can have a vote.
Yeah, you could say will it be Google and Google Classroom and Gemini? Will it be Canva, which I think is a totally legit players now? Will it be the aforementioned and no idea what it means AI Magic School operating system? I mean, just of those three, what would you pick?
I mean, I'm going to go with Google just because it's so in there, but that's not to say that students aren't going to use Canva on their own to do projects too, right? Like my dear friend Brianne, who's a college professor, texted me the other day and was like, so an assignment we've done for years is the students have to make a trifold brochure about aphasia for non-medical people to explain aphasia. So she works with speech language, little freshmen, sophomores that are just kind of getting into what being a speech language pathologist is. She's like, is there something that'll be able to make them a trifold brochure about aphasia for non-medical people using AI quickly? And within 45 minutes, I sent her back a brochure, and I do not use Canva well. And I was like this? And she was like, Yeah, now like that.
And
So,
did you use like the AI magic tools inside Canva to
inside
do that?
Canva, yeah. And it did not take long. And, again, she was like, oh, well, we put a lot more parameters around it. And I said, actually, with a lot more parameters around it, the more directions I can give Canva, the more it's just going to produce exactly what I want.
Yeah. So for your friend, you can do anything. For your daughter, you have to outsource her Italian restaurant to
Kyle's got to do it.
Good job, Kyle. Took
He's
one
the
for the
best.
team. All right, let's talk more about technology. Sorry, there's a big theme here, but we're going back to Estonia. Liz, just,
love Estonia.
how many times have you been to Estonia?
2,
Okay, just
maybe 3.
give us a 10-second overview.
Oh, small country, border near Russia, but across the ocean, not the ocean, across the
That's
little
not 10 seconds.
river from Finland. Take a boat from Finland.
Oh, right, to buy alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Liz, so there's a story from The Guardian all about phones, which is a little counterintuitive right now, going against the tide.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not counterintuitive. So Estonia eschews phone bans in school and takes leap into AI. This is by Sally Wheel from May 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, Estonia's doing all kinds of great things. Tell us about them.
Yeah, okay. So Sally Wheel citing Estonia's top performance in the 2022 PISA exams, which is the OECD's global assessment on student achievement. And Liz is an expert in the PISA and will remind us that the reason this is the 2022 exams that we're looking at is because it's on a multi-year cycle. All right, so here are their rankings. They are number 1 in Europe for math, science, and creative thinking, and they are number 2 in reading, just behind Ireland, a country known for its literature. But
And knitting.
in contrast to England, though, where England, like here in the United States, schools have essentially blocked or banned phones. We have a very aggressive stance on it here in our state. In New York State, I think the governor is passing a law. There have been multiple laws in California. And Estonia is going the other way, right? They are handing out phones, not literally handing out phones. They are handing out AI accounts with the cooperation from OpenAI. Their Minister of Education, Christina Callas, says, we use mobile phones for learning purposes. And she says, I have not heard any problems, to be honest. That statement feels a little like outside the edge. I went on to read a little bit more about that, and she talks about how schools do have some autonomy, and so there may be things independently, but it's not floating up to her.
Right. So Estonia is not new to this game. They launched Tigerhuppa, or Tiger Leap, back in 1997.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? That was great.
Tigerhuppa.
Excellent.
It was a bold government-funded initiative that rapidly connected Estonian schools to the internet in the late 90s. So they were one of the first to do this. It gave every student access to a computer lab, and now it's just evolved to smartphones and AI.
Right, and phones are kind of like they're central to big parts of their culture, and I think including voting, right?
Yeah. In local elections, 16-year-olds can vote, and they vote online through their mobile phones. So we want them to use mobile phones to do their civic duty, which means that they have to be using them. They have to be comfortable with these tools.
Yeah, no, that's a compelling point. I mean, if teens are trusted to vote online with a phone, it'd be kind of contradictory or confusing to say, but don't use it for science class.
Exactly. Schools establish the rules. They do have it regulated. So mobile phones are not used during breaks, and it's not like phones are out all the time and everybody's on them in distracted ways. They're using them purposefully, which I think is what we argue they should be used purposefully here in the US, but I don't know. We just haven't figured out how to do it.
Yeah, this feels cultural. Like, I mean, maybe there's just something going on in Estonia. It's also a very small country, right, with a lot of, not control, but it's easier to build culture. And I think they've been able to build a culture around that. We cannot deny that anywhere we go where there is a school, phone ban in place, I see two things, basically. I see bans that became porous and soft and the teachers gave up, and then bans that are really hold firm. And teachers are like, dancing in the hallways.
Right.
While checking their Instagram accounts.
Yeah. Around that cultural piece, a lot of Estonia is similar to Finland in that there's a huge high level of trust. And so that trust that is so cultural and that respect of rules that is just so part of who they are helps set the groundwork for this. That, if there's a rule, they follow it. There's not the same kind of like subversion and trying to get around the rules.
Interesting. It almost reminds me a little bit, I think you mentioned actually in the last episode, for a while back, we covered some of the academic integrity policies in some universities. And I don't know where it is, 2 years out or a year out, but was it like Swarthmore and Bryn Mawr or?
Yeah, some schools in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, very small schools, one all female that I wanted to go to, but you told me I couldn't get in.
Yes.
Where they have just built like a real culture around that. So that may be part of it. Now, we have covered previously on a story about Estonia that this is also paired with AI. So Estonia is leaping into AI with a new national initiative with the goal of equipping students and teachers with world-class AI tools. So they are working on a license with OpenAI. We're talking about 58,000 students and 5,000 teachers to get started in 2027.
Which isn't even as big as the state of Connecticut.
Right.
Right? Like we have 10 times that many students just in Connecticut.
Yeah. Estonia will become an AI testbed for sure. The minister says the aim is to make Estonia one of the smartest AI-using nations, not just the most tech-saturated, which is a great distinction.
It's not just about giving them tools. It's about training. So there's teacher professional development that's going to emphasize self-directed learning, digital ethics, and AI literacy. There's a recognition that equity matters. Access to AI shouldn't depend on whether your teacher understands it, which is such a different take on equity than what we think about as equity here. They're really talking about teacher skills.
Right. And they're also fundamentally looking at the purpose of education and assessments, right? So they are arguing from the Minister of Education right on down that in addition to phones and kind of leveraging AI, they're shifting how they think about assessment.
Yeah. Callis said the AI revolution may mean the end of essays for homework, which is a controversial statement for some.
And she goes deeper, though. It's not just saying homework's done, right? What's her solution?
No, she talks about moving towards oral exams, critical thinking, higher order cognitive work that AI can't do for the student. So she's said we either evolve into faster thinking and higher level thinking creatures, or the technology will take over our consciousness.
Yeah.
Estonia is not just trying to keep up, they are trying to leap ahead. It's like the calculator movement in math education, but with writing, reasoning, and research.
Yeah, the calculator comparison is always a little tricky because, it's not like math is a small domain of knowledge, but we're talking about like a slice, and then we're talking about all other cognitive work.
Yeah.
It's a big GD calculator. So, Dr. Ade, I think I know where you're going to go, but could this work in the U.S.?
We are just leading in the U.S. and the U.K. Their reactions are from this fear of cheating and distraction, and that is what's leading our policy, where Estonia is leading with trust and capacity building. So could it work? You have to shift your whole mindset about what AI is and what digital literacy, artificial intelligence literacy is. So
which we may be forced to do. It just may be we may be painfully dragged through the process of AI putting a mirror up to our curriculum and assessment practices and saying those aren't going to work anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, though, too, right? 1.4 million population. So they've got high speed everywhere. Go back to the episode we did with Dan Noyes about broadband access. They've got long-standing digital ID and e-governance infrastructure, as we said, including kids using their phones for voting. So it is not simple, but it does seem like a really good microcosm for us to be able to look at and learn from.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this next year in Estonia. Maybe I need to take a trip there.
I was just about to say, ChatEDU field trip to Estonia?
I'm ready.
Get out the credit card, John. So, Liz, Cam's going to come on in a second and talk about the next summer cohort for our AI micro-credential. I think this is the last time that we'll run that little plug. It's now June 20th, and the course is going to start in a couple weeks in July, and we're pretty much full. Is that right?
Pretty close to it, yep.
Yeah, but you like letting more people in.
I do.
All right.
I'm a pushover.
Yeah, thanks for your patience as we run just a little bit of, we call this a house ad, I guess.
Excellent.
So if you
into the lingo.
If you haven't had a chance yet, come join us for the summer micro-credential. Liz is a wonderful summer guide and a kind and gentle facilitator.
I try to be.
If you enjoy Matt and Liz's insights on AI and education, don't miss their next 6-week AI and K-12 education micro-credential, launching this summer in partnership with Southern Connecticut State University. This self-paced online course covers AI essentials for educators, from foundational concepts to advanced skills like prompting, AI-driven assessments, and multimedia creation. Each cohort includes 4 live Zoom sessions for hands-on support, and participants earn a Credly digital credential. Visit skills21.org/AI/micro to sign up now. Group discounts are available for schools and districts. We hope you can join us.
All right, Matt, now it's time to go beneath the surface with an article titled Trimming the EdTech Fat, How Districts Are Streamlining Their Digital Ecosystems. And this is from EdSurge by Ellen Ullman from May 16th.
Yeah, so Liz will give us the overview of the EdSurge article in just a second, but we're going to do something we've never done here before. So we're pulling from a piece from EdSurge, but I've been kind of fascinated by this question that we posed in the earlier part of the episode about the disruptive nature of large language models against the entire edtech landscape. And there's a few reasonably good articles out there, but nothing comprehensive. So we just made one, and now we're going to report on it. So for full transparency, we're going to reference EdSurge. Then we're going to reference a 40-page deep research report that Gemini generated with 50, 60, 70 links that it looked at, curated, reviewed, high quality. We will put it into the show notes, but we are basically covering ourselves, I guess I would say.
And making it transparent.
Yes, you down with that?
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right, tell us about EdSurge.
Okay, so districts are reducing the number of edtech tools accumulated during the pandemic to cut costs, reduce redundancy, and improve alignment with instructional goals. And they looked at 3 school systems: Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Natick, Massachusetts, and Grapevine, Texas. So Oklahoma City cut 1,800 tools down to 250 approved apps. They use data and platforms like Lightspeed and TrustEd apps to evaluate use and impact, and they found major waste, including $37,000 in unused literacy programs and $16,000 in hardware.
Yeah. Oof. I mean, in fairness, right, the pandemic for every sector, it's not just education, but it was sort of like a buying spree. And I should say here in Connecticut, we use I think it's a Pearson or Instructure affiliated or owned product called Learn Platform. They were independent. I think Instructure, Pearson/Instructure bought them. And they help schools do this like ROI analysis on their EdTech apps. It's funny that you have to go buy another EdTech app in order to do an analysis of your EdTech app.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd
probably throw those all into Gemini, but go ahead.
Yeah. So Natick in Massachusetts formed an equity and accessibility committee, and they evaluate tools for AI capabilities, language support, and accessibility. And they saved $100,000 last year. And they aim to double that by using tools like Magic School AI, which can replace even more of the tools that they have.
Right. Although could add cost too at the same time, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. And then you got Grapevine.
And Grapevine Colleyville in Texas emphasizes student and teacher feedback and screen time, and they used analytics to trim down to core apps per subject. And so they are seeking a 5 to 10% annual reduction in EdTech spending. So across all the districts, the common theme is shifting from quantity to quality, equity, and intentionality with instructional vision guiding decisions.
Okay, great. Yeah, so big theme going on reported by EdSurge, which is that, school districts are absolutely looking at their entire EdTech stack and then, making some important decisions about what makes sense to keep and what does not.
Yeah, it's a lot of money they spend on.
Yeah, and that's the tool front. There's also just this kind of framing for when do we use tech, and we are a big fan. We've shared many times before. There's a prompt up in our prompt library. I think it's in the leadership category under SAMR, SAMR, which is just a prompt and a rubric to help you think about here's a unit of instruction. We're using a lot of technology. Where the most strategic deployments that technology, including AI, is really adding value. All right, so that's part 1. Now, part 2 is AI's Ascent, the EdTech Shakeup. This is based on a report called the same thing, AI's Ascent, Reconfiguring the Educational Technology Landscape and Identifying Tools at Risk of Obsolescence, developed by me, plus Gemini. Mostly Gemini.
With some prompting from Matt Mervis.
Yeah. But I felt really comfortable. I mean, I went through all 40 pages. I looked at the citations. I looked at what it did. And we were going to... Sorry, if you are on camera, you'll just see the very suspicious look that Liz gave me. Let's carry on.
Keep going.
All right. So here's the big picture, right? We've got this potential seismic shift. We do not know that this is going to land because we have to go back to the last episode of Artificial's Jagged Intelligence and the reality that we are still plagued by hallucinations, authorship, intellectual property theft. I mean, this is a big steamship that has some engine trouble sailing towards the entire EdTech ecosystem. but nonetheless, I think it's worth putting a flag on the field. So the core infrastructure layer is being built with AI. I think that's exactly the argument that we made in the first story. Direct quote from Gemini's report is that AI is not merely an incremental feature or an enhancement, but it's evolving into a core infrastructure layer for EdTech.
Yeah, the EdTech's reach extends to everything from content generation to tutoring to administrative automation. So, in Magic School AI alone, there are 80 plus AI tools for teachers designed to offload tasks like lesson planning, feedback, even parent emails. So there's a lot going on there.
Yep. So the report broke down, it was really interesting. It looked at tons and tons of tools, and it broke them down into 3 buckets: highly vulnerable, medium vulnerability, and low vulnerability. So this is basically looking at a bunch of ed tech tools and then looking at what large language models do and making some determinations. So let's look at the highly vulnerable. So here the risk is that we have directly replaceable or significantly surpassed by AI. These tools often rely on static content, basic automation, or human labor for tasks that AI can do faster, cheaper, or better. So the buckets or examples are basic content delivery, so digital libraries, non-interactive e-textbooks, then some of the quizzing stuff, right, Quizlet versions, and then homework help. And there's a big profile in the study that Gemini did about Chegg, and we'll talk about that. All right, Liz, then you got the medium vulnerability. What's that all about?
Yeah, so these are apps that are going to need to adapt significantly with deep AI integration in order to remain relevant. So their existing features are challenged by AI, but institution embeddedness or more complex functions provide some stability. So these are the learning management systems like Canvas, like Blackboard Learn. It doesn't say PowerSchool here, but I'm assuming.
I think they put PowerSchool. It's funny, they do talk about SISs, but in a different bucket. They argue that who the hell is they? Gemini argues in this highly quality, deep research that SIS is also foundational. So it's not kind of at risk at the same time. Carry on. So we're in like LMS land here, right?
Okay, yeah. So those LMSs, Canvas, Blackboard Learn, kind of need to up their AI game if they want to stay relevant. Formative assessment tools, Kahoot, quizzes, there needs to be AI for deeper insights, not just quiz generation. But man, kids love a Kahoot. I use it all the time. And then content creation suites like Google Workspace, Microsoft Office 365 need to just keep building that AI in there to make them continue to be relevant.
Which they're clearly already
doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the LMS one's really interesting. So I think Schoology has a deal now with Google. We'll talk a little bit about that. Canvas as well. And then certainly Google Classroom, I think, is going to become Gemini'd all over the place. All right, and then we've got low vulnerability. So here the risk is that this could be more things that are augmented rather than replaced. So very specialized hardware. Think about something like zSpace that we talked about a couple of weeks. They've been a great new partner for us. Also things that require nuanced human interaction or themselves are evolving to counter AI misuse, like Turnitin, right? So here we've got specialized AR, VR, XR platforms, tools for complex human interaction like project-based learning. Yeah. Although we found that like AI can be a fantastic, I guess it is low vulnerability because in our personal interest project platform, we have an AI integration that we think is really working great.
Right. AI can support, but not replicate.
Yep. 100%. And then you've got these advanced detection tools like Turnitin. And we'll see. We did a fun episode a couple weeks ago called Turnitin's Big 180 because they are also becoming an AI collaboration tool. Oh, and there you go. There's your SISs. So low vulnerability.
Yes.
Cool. I think very, very helpful. Now, interestingly, we talked last week about how you can take a deep research report and then also turn it into an infographic. And so, Andre, I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple screenshots into the feed, but they did a great job. You got this beautiful 40-page report. Then we have AI's ascent, reconfiguring the educational landscape. And then it gives me this really nice bar chart about the prevalence of key edtech categories that we just discussed. And then it talks about, I guess, another really cool chart, the disruption potential across edtech functions. And you basically have this like really nice interactive chart that has high vulnerable, medium, and low. And then, basically goes through what Liz just described, but really nice illustration. And then we have this graphic around Chegg. So anyhow, some of those if you're watching on Spotify or on YouTube, you can check those out. But boy, I don't know. I could see us using deep research more often for like the foundation of a story. Liz, let's dig into Chegg. So they give us a couple the case study developed by Gemini. linked here in the show notes, goes into Chegg in some detail. So what's the Chegg story? This is Chegg for those who are unfamiliar.
Right. Chegg it's a homework helping app. Used
Human curated, right? So you basically would go and you would ask questions and it would give you answers.
Correct. And I mean, maybe I used it once or twice when I was doing some.
Did you?
I did when I was doing, well, two reasons. One, when I was tutoring some higher level students in some AP classes. And then also when I was taking a quantitative analysis class and needed some.
This is so exciting. I didn't know we had a real live case study. I have no familiarity with Chegg other than the fact that their stock dropped like 50% in a single day when ChatGPT came out. But actually, it wasn't when it came out. I think it was like in the Q1 of 2025 that they had some rough times because, to your point, it did what ChatGPT does, but most likely better as long as the answer's not hallucinated. So so you paid for it?
There's a free version that you can get some access to.
So you had a high quality tutoring experience and you were too cheap to pay for.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to become like super reliant on it.
Okay.
I've also rented textbooks through it. Like that's how I first knew it, because I didn't want to pay for textbooks that I wasn't going to like use forever.
Okay. Now, Chegg is trying to pivot, right? As any company is. We have a close relationship to the founder of Newsella, which does differentiation of text, right? Which is a thing that AI is doing with some proficiency, and they're doing a really nice job also, like pivoting. I think any of these companies that are in the high vulnerability target with respect to AI are, saw it the day it came out and said, okay, let's start figuring out how do we either add value, bring these tools in, pivot, et cetera, et cetera. So they have Cheggmate and Solution Scout. So they're basically kind of leveraging AI a little bit in ways that are maybe a little bit more defensive than transformative, but time will tell. All right, then we also have Quizlet, right? Are you also a Quizlet user?
I've used Quizlet. It's an easy tool to use. I know that when I was teaching, people used it. It just creates quizzes that kids can use over and over again to study. But so there's been less damage so far because there is a 60 million plus user base. And there was some AI adoption even as early as 2017. But now there are things like QChat, which is AI tutoring, and Magic Notes, which make an automated study set from the generation of student notes. But I mean, again, they're not bulletproof.
Yeah, and there are people that are building, I guess, what I would call AI native competitors like NoteGPT and CourseBox, SlideSpeak, that generate flashcards and summaries on demand. So they're probably sitting on top of some AI model. Again, it's a little hard to tell because our argument earlier was that big AI systems, whether it's going to be a Canvas or a Magic School or a Google and Gemini, these like NoteGPTs and I don't know. One of our colleagues, which we love and respect, just sent out something statewide in our state around a new AI curriculum mapping and planning tool.
Right.
And you can't help but just wonder, right? Will a core model? There was a really important study in the early days of AI where Bloomberg built like a Bloomberg AI, right? They like really custom trained it around a specific use case. And then ChatGPT, the general model, just blew the doors off the thing, right? So like, will these NoteGPTs and CourseBox AIs and SlideSpeaks that are, wrappers, will they really compete when the AI model, the frontier model itself is just going to be so much better? And why would you pay for both?
Right. And it doesn't even have to be so much better. It can be mildly better or just as good. And still, if it's free and easy to access and users are comfortable with it, you don't even need to be that much better, right?
Or you partner. So the LMS space that you mentioned is really interesting, the learning management system space. So they're going to kind of start bringing AI into the mix. A great example, I think, you told me a little bit about what Canvas is doing with Google, right?
Yeah, I mean, Canvas is partnering with Google Gemini's LTI, which is now offering educators these AI-powered announcements and quizzes and student help bots all within the platform. And so platforms that don't offer these predictive analytics and adaptive feedback, workflow automation, they're going to fall behind.
Yeah. It's important to underscore, right, that there are still risks out here. So as much as there is some excitement about the ability for AI, honestly, to bring some cohesion and greater potential to learners in the market, we still have hallucinations, deep fakes, intellectual property issues, energy consumption issues, right? So the kind of constant refrain around some of AI's limitations are important to point out here. And certainly also just reimagining what teaching and learning looks like. So whether it's Canvas or Magic School or Google's Gemini, we have to, you have a great graphic that you helped me develop where it's like teachers on an island and they have their core skills, but some of what they used to do is being done by AI. So differentiation or content generation or data analytics, right? So, but teachers still need these kind of like core human skills, right?
You hit exactly on what I was going to say, that a lot of this is still all thinking about education in the same way we've been doing education. So like Quizlet is still preparing kids for pen and paper quizzes, right? And aren't we going to, I hope, move beyond that kind of education, right? So if education changes so fundamentally that kids aren't sitting and taking multiple choice quizzes anymore, quizzes is going to be useless, right? Like if that's not the way you need to study for how you're being assessed.
Yeah. And if the skills that kids need in this AI world, we'll come back one more time to the World Economic Forum, are problem solving, empathy, creativity, kind of leaning into the human skills and then learning to learn. Teachers, hopefully these AI tools can help teachers take some administrative tasks off them, help with maybe some day grading in ways that are efficient and effective and not biased. But then can they help create learning environments where they are supporting problem solving and project-based learning? Can they provide mentorship? Can they help kids think about how to navigate careers in worlds where AI is disrupting, for instance, the bottom rung of the career ladder? So yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating period, but it won't just be human disruption. There's a lot of tech disruption going on here as well. So we will provide a link to Gemini's quite excellent. Liz, go ahead, give me that look again. Here, let me just say it. I read all 40 pages and looked at the citations and links, but we will put it up in the show notes. And I don't know if we'll do this regularly, but it was a very interesting experiment, and we appreciate you taking this journey with us.
Thanks, listeners. All right, Matt, now it's time for another Bright Bite.
Yeah, so if you're new, Bright Bites are these quick hits where we share something positive that AI is a contribution that AI is making in the environment and society and culture, economy, all that good stuff. And we're kind of water focused right now.
Sure.
Probably because it's been pouring rain constantly.
And it's the summer.
It's the summer. Yeah. So last week we talked about Flood Hub from Google, which is a really cool new AI tool to help detect and provide alerts over Android phones and Google Maps around floods. And this week we are talking about unmapped waterways.
All right. So the title is A Nonprofit Used AI to Document 77 million miles of unmapped waterways. Here's why that matters. And the source is Business Insider. So Bridges to Prosperity, a nonprofit, is using AI to map unmapped rural waterways and identify locations for bridges. Their AI tool, WaterNet, in collaboration with Better Planet Laboratory, has identified an additional 77 million miles of waterways, which more than triples the previously known amount. This AI-powered mapping significantly speeds up the process of identifying infrastructure needs for rural communities, allowing governments to plan bridge construction in months instead of years.
So that's the trick. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the reason this is important to map all these waterways is that then you know where to build bridges, and then folks can get to important infrastructure like medical clinics and schools.
Exactly. It positively impacts people by creating safe and accessible routes to essential services, like medical clinics, schools, markets.
God, it's almost like I read your mind.
Almost like you read my mind.
Another great one, Liz. Okay, I think it is now time to get out the umbrella.
No.
Put on my rain jacket.
No. Roll the credits.
As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at chatedU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the executive director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, and our micro-credential co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you again for listening to ChatEDU.